Hey guys, how's it going? Starting this episode off with a GMC 1951 100 pickup truck, and I got a bunch of parts over here. I got leaf springs, the steering, connecting rod, some new ball socket, like tie rod ends, and then he's upgrading to tie rod ends on the steering link. New leaf spring, shackle mounts, bushings and pins for the rear part of it. That's another shackle mount. New brake lines, but that'll all be good and dandy. But I was over here looking at everything, and I don't know how well you'll be able to see it on that side. It's super dark. That kingpin is just shot. Actually, there we go. And I don't think it's the kingpin, I think it's the actual crossbeam. Because I don't know how well you can see, but it looks like the knuckle and everything is moving uniform inside the sleeve there. So I'm going to give LMC Truck a call and see if they have any type of repair for the beam, because we can't find one anywhere. So I'm going to get this all tore apart and inspect that sleeve. The owner believes he did kingpins probably 8 or 10 years ago, but he doesn't drive it much, and he said they shouldn't be bad. And he thinks the same thing, that the crossbeam's bad. Plus this thing leaks like crazy. I'm sure it's common though. It's leaking gear oil out of the transmission. It looks like it's coming from the plug, which he just had this rebuilt. Leaking oil out of the oil pan bolt, and I think the rear main's leaking as well. This is everything soaked, starter soaked in oil. Anyway, I'm taking a break from sheeting the barn here to work on this. Once I get it down from the lift, I'll show you guys a little better view of it inside. It's pretty clean. It's a 3 on a tree, straight 6. You can tell it's got a pretty cheap single stage paint job on it. Underneath isn't bad. It's got a wood bed in it. Frame solid. Body has some patches. There's one there. The tunnel, they just did like a sheet metal from like HVAC or something. And there's, rusted through right there. I saw another spot somewhere. But a lot of sheet metal screws just sticking through there. But he doesn't show it. He just drives it. He's probably in his mid-70s. He just wants to drive around and enjoy his truck. He said right now with the steering the way it is, it's too sloppy. He said this brake likes to lock up, so I think we're going to throw 2 new wheel cylinders on in the front, bleed the brakes. Got to replace the rubber lines anyway. Wheel cylinders are cheap, might as well just do it. It's a fun little project. 1951 GMC 100. So, hope you stick around to see the inside, and let's get working on it. Pull off the cap. I had to lose. Let's see how heavy this is. Oh, not bad at all. Unfortunately, with having to order parts and everything, this is probably going to tie up my hoist for a while. But I have plenty of other work to do, so I don't know what the bearings feel good. Yeah, that's all new hardware in there. I wonder if this has the upgraded bearings. Stop that. So this still has the old style roller bearings in there. Definitely not as good as modern stuff. Modern meaning like the 80s. Spindle still looks good. Definitely needs new shoes. There's probably 1/8 inch or so there. It's covered in brake dust. Man, lighting sucks. I need to get a light. That's a little better. That stuff's on there pretty thick. I think I'll just strip it all down, take a picture quick for reference, and I'll throw it in the parts washer. Oh yeah, these things were leaking. That's gross. There we go. I don't know how many people know what this is, but this is for brake drums. Now if it's loose, I can just twist this right out. I probably need those though. There we go. Little push rod for the wheel cylinder. And I'll take this off and I'll just clean the backing plate because the backing plate will reuse. And I'll clean that all up in the parts washer and all the hardware that's reusable. Ooh, I'm going to take off the brake line completely. I think I'll let it drip for a minute though into the pan. Probably can't see it on camera, but I can hold both and move it back and forth just a little bit. There's just a little cap on the top that you can poke a hole in and pry it out. Then I'm going to use a brass hammer, try to tap that through. I'll show you real quick. It's moving a little. But that right there is like a tapered pin that holds the kingpin in. Just punch the rest of the way. I'll try to drill a little pilot hole first. I pushed it right out. I'm going to try to keep track of the shims. There's a big one on the bottom. Small one on the top. This shim's shot. It's got a, probably from moving around so much. Putting this in there, no play whatsoever. Bottom bushing looks good too, but I'll pull that cap out and check. Oh yeah. That's not good. So, I'm going to call around, see what I can do. See if LMC truck has something. Got a buddy who owns a machine shop. Maybe he can hone it out and sleeve it or something. But, alright, we're going to take a break and try to figure this out. So right now I'm taking out the front axle. Got the other side all tore down. The driver's side is definitely worse than the passenger side. Called a local machine shop. They said they think they can put an oversized kingpin in there or sleeve the knuckle itself. So I'm gonna get this off, take it over there. Hopefully they can help us out. But right now I got the leaf spring nuts loose. I'm just taking them off. A lot easier than doing a 4x4 axle. So those axles just caked with probably 70 years of grease and grime, and whatnot. So I'm gonna degrease it, hook up power washer, clean it up real quick. So I'll be right back. Alright, so I just went through and shot this whole video on changing out the leaf spring. Got it all changed out and my camera froze and never started filming, so that kind of sucks. But a leaf spring's a leaf spring. You just have the bolt in the back, your shackle in the front, and if you have to change out your bushing in the frame, I just took, so here's your bushing that gets kind of pressed into the frame. And you have a pin like this that screws into the bushing. It's threaded inside. So I had it threaded kind of mostly out. Obviously the opposite side of the zerk fitting was sticking out. And I just hit it with like a 3-pound sledgehammer and it pushed it right out. So here's the one that came out. So just like this, I pushed it out like that. And then I had this in the freezer, shrunk it down as much as I could. And I tapped it in with a brass hammer. I tried ball joint press, it just wasn't budging it. It wouldn't go straight. So, and that worked. Both the leaf springs are changed. I'm gonna go now and clean up all the U-bolts and the shock mounting hardware and all that so I can bolt the axle back in. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in my parts washer. I'm still working on my sheeting and stuff, so the barn's a little bit of a mess, but parts washer is hidden way over there. So I'll climb over there and get it all cleaned up. But I'll be back in a few. Get the bump stops up there. Alright, it's hot in here. I got the front axle installed. I got oversized kingpins because they're pretty wore out and that's where a lot of the slop was coming when he was driving it. So I ordered a reamer so I can install the oversized spring kingpins, and they are not here yet. So I'm pretty much at a standstill on the steering and suspension portion and brakes and all that until I can remount this axle and put the knuckles back on. So until then, I think I'll do the brake lines. I got all 3 rubber brake lines, and I want to flush out the master cylinder as well because he was having some braking issues. So I figure I'll do a full flush, new fluid, everything. And we also got new shoes and hardware for the brakes. So hopefully we can get it to stop better. We have a new oil pan gasket and a rear main seal coming because it's leaking pretty good. They had the transmission rebuilt last summer and that's leaking, but I think the only leak is coming from the drain plug. I think I just wrap that with some Teflon tape and give that a shot. The majority of the leak is definitely oil from the rear main. And it's just a rope seal. I think they're fairly easy to do. So Getting close. It's just no one has anything in stock for these old trucks, so everything's getting ordered and it takes time. I got a line of projects waiting for this thing to get out of here too. It's rather inconvenient. I waited to bring it in here because I knew we'd have to order some parts until I had like no one calling me asking me to do things. And the day after I get it up on the lift and all tore apart, I had like 6 calls. So I'm anxious to get it out of here. Also has all 4 new shocks coming. He's getting some Coker tires ordered, so it'll ride a little better. I'm not doing those. Don't have a way to do those. So I'm gonna take a little break, drink some water, go get some lunch, and knock out these brake lines. All right, guys, back working on this 51. I got the kingpins installed, the shock on this side, new brake lines. I gotta do the brake lines in the back, shocks in the back. Kingpins went in pretty good, no slop anymore. No movement, nice and solid. These were all worn out. New bushing over here. This one didn't need a new bushing. Everything's good and tight. Cleaned up the axle. I cleaned all this up to see if I can figure out where it's leaking from. It looks like whatever this like JB Weld or whatever is right there, it's leaking from there. And it also looks like it has a rear main leak. So there's a cork gasket here on the torque tube, and then there was a metal ring there, and then this went up, and it was always dripping out of there. To me, it seems like this should be on the other side, and the cork could be shoved in there. So it looks like it's installed backwards to me. I can't find anything in any books or any diagrams in the parts catalogs how that would go together. It just seems like if you push that up against there and then the cork, you just don't get a very good seal. So I might take that off and spin it around and see. I ended up getting a set of reamers, old reamers I found on eBay to ream out that axle to do oversized kingpins. I got one more of the brake line in the rear to still do. This is the master cylinder cap. I got some brake shoes, hardware kit. I got the new pins for the rear of the front leaf springs. There's the rest of the shocks and stuff. Oil pan gaskets, oil filter, and then I got some oil over there. I'm gonna make a video on this stuff here in a second. Update on my C10. And I'm still doing the sheeting slowly but surely. I haven't put anything up in a few days. I've been working on this and working. But I'm gonna wrap this up here shortly. All right, we're continuing on with the 51 GMC 100. So I found the transmission leak. The transmission leak was this back right here. They just had like an RTV plug made. So I cleaned it real good, and I'm gonna try the same thing with some RTV black. I just sprayed it with some brake clean, letting it dry a little bit before I RTV it. I emptied the fluid. Fluid looked clean. This was just rebuilt, I think, a year or two ago. So, and then I dropped the oil pan, changed the rear main seal, cleaned everything real good. Still, I just put a rope seal back in it, and I drove it a little bit. Doesn't seem to be leaking much. Has a little bit of oil in there. So one of the other things I read that's common with these, if you don't put like a flywheel bolts. Oh, like some APR or ARP thread sealer or something like that on the flywheel bolts that they can seep through there. And since it's coming out of that hole in just a little bit, that's kind of what I'm thinking is going on, and I'm not going to fix that. I don't want to pull the transmission or the clutch or anything like that. So it is what it is. Sat overnight. I actually sat for about 48 hours because I worked yesterday. That's gear oil. And then I had those 3 drips. I don't know. Let me see if I can get a flashlight. Don't put your face under the dripping gear oil. But those 3 drops right there come from power steering box. You can see that that shield there is just saturated, so that could be rebuilt. So I'm gonna let this continue to drip clean and get some of the fluid out of there. In the meantime, I got the brakes all together, and I forgot to put this. It goes up there behind the 2 springs on the top, and make sure it holds the shoes even and they don't float around. So gotta put that back on. Unfortunately, I just got done adjusting the brakes and everything, so I'll have to do that all over again. But I'm gonna take this off real quick, do the other side, finish bleeding the brakes, seal up the back of the transmission, get that full, and I gotta figure out how I can get the fill plug off the back of the rear end and check that. That's on there pretty hard. I don't want to strip it or round it off. And new leaf springs. He had a new rear bolts in the rear. I missed them, so I just got to swap out these bolts for the new bolts, and this will be done. So I'll check in with you guys once I get it all back together on the ground, and we'll go for a test drive. Also real quick, these still have round ball bearings in there. You have a inner and an outer race. So here's the inner race right there. It's stuck to the washer. It actually comes off. You would just stick that in there. They do make a conversion kit to do roller bearings, but as much as he drives this, he's okay with the bearings. Are still in good shape, so maybe in the future, but for now we're sticking with the roller bearings. I got the leaf spring bolts swapped out. Right there. I peeled off the old, well, I showed you that, peeled off the old Permatex. Put some new black on there, and I rubbed it in pretty good with my finger and stuff. Hopefully it'll hold. Before I just had a little pinhole like over in here, so hopefully that holds. And brakes are back together. I'm gonna let that sit for 24 hours before I fill it. I gotta tighten that up a little, and then I'm having a heck of a time getting that off. I know they make square sockets for getting that off. But they wanted me to check the fluid in there, make sure it's full. I did put new bleeder screws on the back. They just had the ones, couldn't even put a hose on them, they were just a hole. What else? I went through and greased everything. Tightened, did a nut and bolt check on everything. Also did new shocks front and rear. Everything I tore apart, I cleaned in the parts washer, or power washed and degreased. You can't really tell because of the sun in the background. But the axle, knuckles, all that stuff's been cleaned. I think the next thing they need to tackle on here is a gearbox for the steering. But I'm just going to bleed some brakes a little bit while I'm waiting for that to dry, and I'll do the road test tomorrow. So we'll be back shortly. All right, it just came off the lift for the last time. I'm gonna go take it out for a test drive. Let's, pedal feels a lot better. Let's see how she does. I don't know how I'm gonna film and everything at the same time, shifting. No. Charlie. She's gotta come with me. Let's take your collar off. Come on. Don't want you to get shocked. Here, first gear. She does not make this easy. There we go, second gear. Oh, she's spitting and sputtering a little bit. Speedometer doesn't work. So the third gear. Doesn't feel like it has. Oh, okay. Here we go. Wasn't all the way in. Maybe she needs to warm up a little bit. Alright, I'll put it in neutral and try the brakes. Oh yeah, it doesn't pull or nothing. First. Excellent. Second. Third is way down there and it dang near hits my knee. Charlie's enjoying the ride. Alright, I'm gonna put this down, turn around, and go back. Alright, I just took it for a test drive. Steering feels a lot better. Brakes are good. I can lock up both fronts not fairly easy, but they lock up if I push hard enough. So I think it's good to go. Quick, shouldn't say quick. Wasn't too bad. I probably had 10, 12 hours into. Most of the time was waiting on parts. They probably tied up my lift for about 3 weeks. So every time we found something new, we had to order parts. So fairly easy, fairly straightforward. Don't have any parts left over. Front brakes are good. So that's going to conclude this episode, and they should be picking this up tonight. We'll see you next time, and take care.